Guys, I'm so excited for you to have joined us today because we have an amazing guest on the show. So, Kelley Rene is award-winning author who is contemporary fiction beautifully weaves biblical truth into the everyday moments of life, and whether they mundane, exhilarating, or stormy. Her work inspires readers to find hope and faith in every circumstance. And I cannot wait for you guys to hear her insight. Welcome, Kelley, to Love and Beloved podcast.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy to be here.
Well, actually, I said the podcast, but it's platform. So if you guys don't know, there's the YouTube channel and you can see this all on video as well. Please check out. I put everything in the show notes because sometimes like I love to listen podcasts when I'm driving or cooking, but sometimes when I just have a minute to just watch something, I love watching interviews. Plus, like you can see this beautiful lady, her amazing smile, and you can relate to lots of different things, like because sometimes we are like visual learners and audio learners. So I just give you another opportunity to listen this and watch this, and to any platform that you choose. So Kelley, can you please share a bit about your background and what has shaped you in the person that you are today?
I would love to do that. Well, my name is Kelley Rene, and I love the Lord. I've had the incredible opportunity to live and visit all over the globe. And what's so cool about that is, as I've met other women and men for that matter, I found that despite all of our differences, we really are very, very similar. And there's something incredible about connecting with someone who you just met, who is completely opposite, looks different, sounds different, and yet there is a common thread there. And we're all human, we're all women or men, and we all struggle in some way. And it's just encouraging to me to know that I'm not in this alone, that not only do I have my Lord and Savior to help me, but there are others who rally around me. The Lord just brings others into my path. And it just blesses me to, at different times, I've just been incredibly blessed just through the relationships and the encouragement of other people. Our lives can look so different, and yet, like I said, they can be so similar at the same time.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's so interesting that you bring this point first because I just did this speak actually in front of 250 high schoolers sharing my story. And God led me to this exercise, which I did it before as well, just to show how the same we are. So I just was asking them questions and asked them to be honest and open. And I asked them all stand up in the same time if they agree. So I would say, who loves to spend time with family and friends? And they all get up. It was so impactful for them to see that, wow, we love the family and friends. And I tell them, sit down. And there are a few more questions that they good and fluffy about reading books, music, and they keep up and down together, laughing. And then I ask them about more serious questions, who experience love, loss, grief, and pain, and they all stand up as well, like all doubts and fear, they all stand up. And the last sentence of that exercise that I want them to understand, because that was big for me, to feeling alone in my struggle. And I said to them, the biggest lie that you can believe, that you are alone and nobody will understand. And I think that's what's so beautiful, because we are so different. They're all different. They similar age, but they all different backgrounds, the culture and everything. But they stand up to every question that I ask together, 250 kids. So I want them to remember that when the hard time hit, there will be someone, there will be God who gonna lead them into asking those questions, but he bring and resources and people. And it's so beautiful that you actually touching on that, because it's very important to know that we'll understand.
Right. And I do think it's a little cliche now to say we're not meant to do life alone, but I really do believe that we're not meant to do life alone. And it's in the journey, and sometimes we're so focused on the goal, what we're trying to accomplish, what we're doing with our life, that we forget to actually enjoy those ups and downs, because it's in the ups that we can learn to celebrate, but it's in the downs that we learn to not only trust in God, but to trust in one another, to lean on one another, to share our stories, and not be isolated, not be afraid that perhaps others are going to shame us or make fun of us, or whatever we're believing, but just simply being transparent and sharing our
Yes.
struggles. There's just power in that. It just gets me excited.
That's so awesome. You literally talking to me because for 20 years I did not share this story that on Tuesday I was sharing with 250 kids, because when God called me to share this story, I cried for days. I couldn't believe it. I thought I gonna carry this to my grave, because the enemy, the devil who tried to destroy me, he told me for 20 years this lie that I gonna be first of all abandoned, and it's like number one for me. He said, if somebody find out who you really are, they're gonna leave you. And that's what happened with my family. Like lots of abandonment issues, like was as a trauma. And that's what the enemy spoke into it. And God spoke in the different, like, my mind and my soul, saying, whoever love you never leave you. He kept like everything negative that I come, and it still took me a while to say, okay, God, I trust you, I will do it. And you know why I decided to do it and share my story? Because I want to be obedient to him, because he was so faithful to me. I was so scared, but I said, you know what, I will trust you, because every time that what I heard, trust me, just trust me. And now I've been speaking for 4 years, and honestly, that time already with kids, I'm like, who else? Do you have any questions? Like, how can I help you? How can I serve you? And I was thinking, God, I love this. I so love this. I'm so grateful, because through sharing my story came number one, got healed. I got healed through it, because I already looking into my past through different perspective. Second, well, my relationship with God grew, because I'm like, wow, you are faithful. You are for me. You are healing me, and you are using me to heal somebody else or encourage somebody else. But the another one broke all the enemy lies and strongholds, because not only people who loved me didn't leave me, people who heard my story for the first time loved on me. So it was completely opposite of all the lies and fears that I experienced. And it was truly give me like this huge breakthrough. So I'm thankful that you taking these points today, because I'm honestly, I'm so excited that this has happened to me. And guys, it can happen to you. Just don't believe the lies. It's
That's
gonna
right.
be a slow process though. Don't think that, oh, you just can do it. But it's gonna be slowly but surely. And that's how it's supposed to be. Don't rush.
Right. And interestingly enough, that really resonates with me, because when I always knew that I wanted to be a writer from the time that I was a little child, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I loved to read, and I wanted to craft stories that spoke to people's heart. But I spent my entire life running from this reality, being afraid. The enemy was just constantly bombarding my mind with thoughts of, who's ever going to want to read your stories? Why do you think that you have something that anybody else would care about? And I literally, I don't want to give away my age, or maybe I should. It was not until I was in my 40s that I just thought, if I do not get these stories out of my mind, my head's just going to explode. I've got to do it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write the first one and I'll just send it to my friend. So I'll be obedient by just simply sending this first story to my friend. And when I sent that first email, I ran into my closet. This is a true story. I ran into my closet. I covered myself with all of my clothes, and I thought, she's going to hate it. She's going to hate it. She's going to hate it. And the reality is, she did not hate the story. She had some really good constructive feedback for me. And that began the journey of just a little bit of faith, that mustard seed of faith,
Mm.
telling God, I want to be obedient, but I need your help in being obedient. And I joined a critique group. I started reading books about how to be a good writer, learning the craft of writing. And
Mm.
that very story that I was terrified to send to my friend is now an award-winning story. And
That's
I've got
amazing.
several more that I just felt like the Lord just really impressed upon my heart to write these stories. And Camila, the one that I was telling you about, is
Mm.
one of those. And I literally, the enemy kept saying, if you publish this story, oh, you're going to get a terrible backlash. People are going to tell you this can't possibly be true. This is, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, I have got to write the story, whatever the outcome is, even if no one ever reads it, or if in fact people read it and they hate it, I have to be obedient. And thus was born the story of Camila. And I just love that story because it is a constant reminder to me to not be afraid to step out of my comfort zone. If the Lord is putting something in my mind, even the silliest thought, I want to be obedient to what I perceive the Lord is pressing on my heart to do. And again, Camila is a #1 winner. It is a story that people give me 5-star reviews and then they say, but why did you have to write a story about Muslims versus Christians? Well, it's not really about Muslims versus Christians. That's not the true story. Was this woman came to my house and I'm a Christian and I wrote about her and she happened to be a Muslim. But the story at its core is about us stepping out of our comfort zone and embracing other people, loving other people who are different than us, and being okay with that. Just getting to know them and just loving them for who they are. And I don't want to give away the ending of the story, but it's a constant reminder to me, not only to be obedient, but simply to not be afraid. Don't let fear strangle me from doing what perhaps the Lord's telling me to do, and what might bless somebody else. Somebody must need to hear that today, because I just really feel that just really impressed upon my heart.
That is beautiful. And so before that, I have these thoughts because, like, honestly, the way you're speaking, it's just touching so many things, like in my mind and in my story as well. It's so beautiful. But first of all, I want to say, and I want to ask you, do you think this obedience and trust and that stepping out of the comfort zone coming with maturity, or like what is that, like in Christ, like we have to have that faith of obedience, or where this coming from? Because look, it took us so long to be actually like not obedient, but submitted to the fact that that's what he calling us to do. He didn't force, he didn't make like you lifetime ago and me 20 years, it was perfect timing when you did it, and you have to step out in faith and action. But what is this you need to like have to actually be obedient?
I do think there is the element of maturity in our faith, just trust and belief in God, that regardless of the outcome, we've been obedient, and that's all that matters. For me, I'm just going to be completely transparent. I was born and raised in a Christian home that was very uh ruled by rules. That's how I'm going to
Mhm.
put it. Ruled by rules. And I do believe and this is no disrespect, my parents have moved on. They did some incredible things serving the Lord in their life, but they were very um
Strict.
legalistic.
Oh, okay.
Legalistic is the
Okay.
word that I'm going to use.
Mm-hmm.
And in the loose sense of the word, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I felt like throughout my life, the Lord has had to work out some of that legalism, some of those things that maybe generations past believed that this is what the Bible would say, but the Lord was calling me to something a little bit more broader. So I want to be careful because I don't want to
Mhm.
disrespect my parents and all that they poured into me and
Absolutely.
my brothers and sisters. But I do think that there was a legalism there that perhaps the Lord
Mm,
was just trying to work out so that instead of me thinking that I had to surround myself with only Christian
mm,
women, which I do think that that is very important because iron sharpens iron. We're
mhm,
going to be like the people that we spend time with. But I do think that there is a time for us to step out of that comfort zone, our comfort zone, those things that we believe are just very rigid, if you will, especially as Christians, we can be very rigid and think, oh my gosh, if I talk to someone who, and I'm just going to say is an alcoholic or a drug addict, oh my gosh, somehow that might spill over into my life,
mm.
and all of a sudden I might be tempted, I might give it, like all these fears, and really it comes back down to the enemy. The enemy doesn't want us to share the love and the joy that the Lord gives us with people who don't have it, because he's already got them stranglehold in whatever their life is like. And I think that God is so multifaceted that he began to say, and I think it's a heart issue too. Maturity, heart issue. I think maybe they're very interrelated. And the more I said, God, I want to be
Mm.
a vessel for you. I want to be obedient. I want to do the things that you've called me to do. I want my life to matter, even if it just means I smile to someone who needed a smile that day. And when I began to see, as I said, Lord, what is my purpose? What is it that you want me to do? How is it that you took me all the way to Germany and I have no friends here? I know no one. And by the way, I don't speak the language. My German was terrible. And yet, even in that, the Lord broke down those barriers and allowed me to literally influence people who I could not even speak their language, but they knew me. We were the only American family at that time in the little village that we lived in. And we lived there for 7 years. And I could go on. I know we have limited time. I could go on and on about some of these situations that we encountered. But when we left that village at the 7 year mark, what I was shocked to realize was everybody in the village knew us. We were the Christian Americans. Now, that's a very broad statement. Thankfully, I was a Christian and we did live our lives according to biblical principles. But simply because they knew I was American, they assumed that I was a Christian. And that shocked me at my core. I'm very thankful, and I think that I behaved in a manner that was pleasing to the Lord. But even in meeting Camila, I'm very thankful that the Lord was breaking down those barriers for me, and little by little, day by day, giving me the courage to smile. I spoke to a child one day. I was giving away a free bicycle, and in my best German, I said to him, do you have a sister, a little sister? It was a little bicycle I was getting rid of. And I said, do you have a little sister who would like a bicycle? And he said to me in perfect German or in perfect English, I'm sorry, I don't understand your English. He thought I was trying to speak English to him. German was so bad. But the Lord was breaking down barriers. And before we left, people, when we were leaving, and I went to the little bakery to buy some little bread for my family the last day that we were going to be in town. And she said, "Oh, you're the lady who lives at," and she quoted my address, and I was shocked, like, "Oh my gosh, this lady knows me." And the reality of it was all this time when I thought, "Oh, I'm just living in this village, nobody knows me other than the few it just interactions, not few, there were a lot of interactions, but I never felt like I had the connections, talking, making friends like I, as an American, would typically do. And yet, what I realized was God was still using me in that little village to speak love and joy and peace into the people who I was coming in contact with on a regular basis. And anyway, I got off tangent somehow, but with Camila, that I just felt like the Lord wanted me to write this story about how he broke down the barriers of a lonely Christian woman in a foreign town where I didn't speak the language, and a lonely Muslim woman who likewise was trying to learn the language, but in her own way wasn't accepted in
Mm.
this German town. And it's just a beautiful story. And even for me, I like to reread it occasionally because I love to be reminded of what the Lord will do if we just are open to Him and saying, use me, whatever that looks like, Lord, use me.
That is beautiful. Excuse me. Beautiful story. And it's honestly about the judgment. It's so interesting that I had my personal story about the judgment like that. I don't know um if you guys know my story, but I'm um drug abuse and human trafficking survivor. And when I came into my husband's family, he was a pastor's son. So I was smoking, drinking. I have different color hair. I didn't speak English. So every time I missed the word in my head, I put the swear word so it's would make sentence and make sense in my mind. But I was like half of the time I was swearing and I was en route and obnoxious. It's definitely not the wife that they planning for the family. And literally, when his mom found out that I was pregnant, she said these two things. She said, "This is not how we're doing in our lives." And they were a Christian family. And second one, she said, God has planned for you,
Oh,
and that's it. And they just loved me. You know,
oh,
they prayed
gave me
for me.
chills. That
Like,
just gave me
yeah,
chills.
and it was so beautiful because they had um yeah, they show me they care for me, they care for my daughter too. And now I've been with my husband this March gonna be 20 years. We have three children, and I give my life to Christ when I was 31, that I told you, Kelly. And actually, through my mother-in-law too, I started showing up literally at the church just to be, I make sure the parents like me, and I color my hair in normal color, and took my tongue piercing out, I'm like, I want them to like me. And that's where I heard the message of salvation. But it's not only that, it's them bringing me to their home to have lunches after church to see how they behave like with each other, and definitely learning more about God. And then one day she said to me, I already I already was seeking. Like, if you know my story, there was like huge process for me to try to figure out what is this missing in my life, because all these mental health challenges, all this trauma leave like huge imprint on my mind, body, and soul. So when I thought I could do like all the physical things, like getting like diplomas, medal, and trophies will fill that space, and then loving my husband, my daughter, like thinking that clean home and clean, like I was already off drugs and alcohol. I thought that's gonna bring me peace, joy, worth, and value, and that didn't happen. So I was looking because like I got everything on my list, and there was no change, and I was suffering. I suffer with my mental health, like, and I was so lost. And then, and I'm so grateful that the God allowed me to actually experience that, because lots of people thinking that, like, if you get everything you wanted, that's where you find your peace and joy and love and wholeness again. So that I'm one of those people. I'm like, I have to do it myself. So I did everything myself, and it wasn't there. So my mother-in-law actually said, go to church, there's movie and a dinner, and you can hang out with the Christians, and I take care of your daughter. So she actually invited me to Alpha course, and that's where I give my life to Christ. And I've been
Wow.
Christian now like for more than 10 years, and God been healing my mind, body, and soul. And I've been like the most stable, the most I don't know, like I have like a peace in my mind. It's just like Bible say beyond all understanding. So now I have it all. So now I'm living his favor and his glory. But the coolest part though, his mom, she passed away recently, but she said to me like you've changed, you
Wow.
know, and it's so cool that we have a moment in our lives when she was praying for me, praying for me, but there was moment that we became as sisters in Christ, and she would lay it out on me, and she's like, pray for me, like, what do you think about that and all that stuff. So it was pretty cool. And it's funny, sometimes she's like, I cannot believe it, he met you in the bar. So, I'm like, that's too funny. But you know what? If that time they could take the different stance and all of us would have a different lives, you know.
Mhm.
And her son too, because I love this man to the moon and back, So instead of like her judging the way I look, the way I speak, where I come from, and then when I wrote the book, I told her my story. I'm like, listen, I give it to you all, but do not judge. This is the way that God asked me to speak. And you know what? If God didn't ask me to speak, this would be buried. Nobody like knew about this before. Except and I wrote my husband a letter before wedding. I want him to choose me and know everything, but he chose not to read it. So I thought this is not gonna come out because the rest of the people I don't care like about the past. I created this persona and they really like, but with saying the truth, it's clean me inside too. It's actually meat inside and outside because he goes to me one day, God said to me, that carefully crafted persona and the stories that you tell, it's actually lying. And I'm like, I'm lying? He's like, wow, you're not telling the truth, are you? I'm like, okay, that's not how I want to be. But that was like interesting too because we talk about the maturity and stuff because he didn't just throw me right away when I was baby Christian, we call it. If you guys don't know about the stages of maturity, there's like just like growing up. So when I just learned about Christ, like he didn't ask me to go and share my story. Like for 5 years, he was healing me, loving on me, brought me to church, brought me community, all those women who supported and love on me and my mom-in-law. So they like really loved on me and established um that foundation that of trust and belief and learning about God as well. So when I said yes to God, I knew that it's him because of I survived all this stuff that was going on, and I knew it's him who gave me peace because I lived without peace. I literally lived in hell. People thinking like hell it's some other fiery pit, after you die. I'm telling you, I lived in hell here because when your mind not in peace and you like thinking to the point that you want to throw up and you're dizzy from your thoughts, and getting depression and anxieties and out of control panic attacks that I end up like being in a hospital. I had
Mhm.
like panic attacks for like older people, not for like 20-year-old. And I had like severe heart palpitations and they couldn't figure out what's wrong with me. It was anxiety. I had so much fear that it was literally like killing me.
Wow.
So I knew when that was gone, I was like, that is
Mhm.
miraculous intervention, supernatural. So I knew definitely God was by my side and helping me. So when I said yes, I just want to be just obedient because I was grateful. But the coolest part about God, when, like, I said that before, when people hear, like, oh, I want to be used by God, I want to be his vessel, people like, you crazy lady, because I don't want to be used. Why? Because we thinking that God uses us the way people using us. And
That's
trust me, yeah, the people using you are you were wiped. But when God using you, that means he feel you so much that you're gonna be serving from overflow. You just
Ooh,
cannot help it just to give. So
that's right. That's awesome. God is so multifaceted. And what's so cool about that is while he's doing something in our heart right where we are, he can be using us to do something in the heart of someone else right where they are in their life that may be in a completely different stage than where we are. So instead of us putting God in a box and saying, okay, God, you can use me as long as it's, you know, XYZ, it's here in my hometown where I don't have to leave my mom and dad, or it's convenient or easy. And that might not be what God is doing. But it could just be you go to the grocery store and you see someone having a struggle, and just stepping in and saying, hey, can I help you? Doesn't really take much on your part, but it could be an incredible blessing for them and in their heart and in their life.
can I ask you, Kelley, like you already 2 times you said this phrase, God is multifaceted. Like,
Mhm.
can you break this down? What is that phrase?
Whew. I'll give you an example. I write about in the book with Women World Leaders Embrace the Journey. I write about a time when my beautiful teenage daughter, my first daughter, ran away from home. And at the time I thought, God, what did I do wrong? I did everything right.
Mhm.
Worked so hard to give them the education that I thought they needed, and to love on them and to spend time with them. And let's just be real. None of us are perfect. None of us can be the perfect mother. So if you're thinking that right now, that's just
Yes.
not possible. There's a whole story about this. So in Miracle Mindset, to back up, forgive me, because these are nonfiction books where I actually talk about true stories in my life. I talk about how when I first my husband and I were going through premarital counseling. We weren't yet married yet. And I knew that I was having some kind of issue. And the minister said to me, well, don't you think you should get that checked out? Don't you think the man that you're about to marry would like to know whether or not he can have children with you? At the time, it seemed like such an odd thing
Mm.
for that man to say. And
Yeah.
yet it sent me on a journey where the doctor later said, it will be a miracle, Kelley, if you ever have a child. And of course, I was devastated because I knew my husband was an
Mm.
only child, and that was something that was very important to him.
Mm.
He wanted to have children. Fast forward, so the Lord gave us 5 children. So in Miracle
Wow.
Mindset, talk about that. So we have 5 children. In Embrace the Journey, I talk about here now I have this 15-year-old who's run away from home, and I was just brokenhearted. So when I thought that I couldn't have children, and when I found out that I was having a child, in my mind, I said, God, I want to be the best mother I can be. Lord, please
Mm.
help me to be all that I can be. So I had created in my mind almost an idol of the mom that
Mm.
I needed, wanted, desired to be for my children. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I do think that we need
Mm.
to strive to be excellent in God. But obviously the Lord had a lesson for me. So in that lesson of my daughter running away, what I realized, and you can go read the story because it's pretty profound.
Mm.
I say that God is multifaceted because he was teaching me to keep my eyes on him, despite what I saw as the
Mm.
worst possible
Very.
situation,
Yeah.
circumstances that I could find myself in. He was teaching my husband through the exact same situation, something different. He was teaching our daughter, our runaway daughter, something that
Mm.
she needed in her life. So God is very multifaceted, and yet
Mm.
he can use one circumstance, one
Okay.
bad situation, one crisis, and literally speak truth into all of the people involved, the exact truth, the exact lesson that we need to learn at that moment. And he's just so incredible that he used one situation that we were all involved in to literally teach and even chastise. I'll say me, I won't say that
Mm.
about my husband and my daughter and even my other children, but to teach me never to put anything else above him.
Mm,
And whereas I had striven my whole life to be, I think that's a word, strived my whole life to be the best mom that I could be,
mm,
what he was calling me to be was a mom who was focused on God first and trusting that he was going to do in my family what he desired to do. It wasn't up to Kelley. It wasn't up to me and my mom power. It was up to him. And so that was one of the lessons that he taught me through that scenario. And I won't give away the ending, but God got the glory. God, in
amen.
fact, did do another miracle in our life through that situation. And I'm just so grateful that he is multifaceted, that he does know what each one of us needs, and he is available to do so much more, even beyond what our mind can fathom in our circumstances, our ups and our downs. We've got to embrace all of them.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for clarifying that because it's exactly how it works, but I never heard this explanation in this phrase. I thought it was amazing. And I hope you guys hear this because sometimes we have those lies, maybe like, oh, he's busy with someone else. He's doing
Yes.
something else. So he can do everything at every time with everyone. And it's so beautiful. And
I've even
another,
heard
oh,
people say, oh,
yes.
didn't mean
Sorry,
to
go ahead.
interrupt you. I've heard people say, oh, I can't pray about that because God's got so much
Mm,
bigger problems that he's helping other people with.
mm,
And that's why I say he's so multifaceted. And it's beyond our comprehension in some ways, but don't ever feel like God doesn't have time for your prayers, because he
mm.
absolutely does. And he wants more than anything for you to pray, because it's through that prayer channel that we build our relationship and our faith. He wants to show you what he can do, what he wants to do in your life through your prayers. But if you don't ask him, then you're not empowering his prayer. And I'm not saying that you're stifling his ability, but what I am saying is, if you don't pray and ask God for a need in your life, you won't know to attribute that miracle that he does to
Mm,
him. You may think it was just a coincidence. It just
yes,
worked out that way. But when you pray and you ask God for a specific need, and then you see that need get answered, you know that it was by the power of God. And that's very
mm,
exciting. And so don't ever feel like you can't pray. So forgive me for interrupting.
absolutely. It's okay. And then I heard this phrase from one of the ladies. She's like, when you pray, God always wanna show up and show
Yes.
off.
Yes, I
So
love that.
and it's so beautiful because like half of the thing that he's showing off with, we unable to get, nobody can get for themselves or by themselves. It's something money cannot buy. So there's another thing that you said this phrase about striving, and I just heard this explanation, and this lady was saying that there is no striving in the kingdom of God because striving it's pride.
Yes.
And that's what we like, that's what God wanna say, like, it's my glory. Because if Kelley was this wonderful mother, then Kelley deserved the praise and glory because she's amazing. And that's so cool that you like so vulnerable you're actually sharing the stories, because sometimes we think like we have to be a certain way and we striving to be the best of the best, and then the kids turn out this way, and like then all this stuff happening. And this was happening in my life too, because I assume if I give the kids everything that I didn't have, the family, the home, clean food stuff, they're gonna be perfect. They're literally gonna reach for the stars. They're gonna be like salt in the light of the earth. Like they're gonna like take this world by storm and have those opportunities that I never had and just change the world, create the impact. And they were just like me. My daughter talking back to me, attitude, all this stuff. But plus, like she always was like strong-willed child, but it's exactly like me. And we went, "Hmm." And I'm like, what happening? And that time I was already Christian, and I'm like, God, she has have to be normal. She have to be normal, because I had like this huge fear that she's just like me, not doing and submit to the horrendous like deeds or anything like that, but her mindset and her speaking and her thinking. I'm like, what just happening? I create this great environment for you to thrive. And you know what she said? She's like, yeah, you put me in the golden cage. I'm like,
Wow.
what do you mean? But then I realized with my anxiety, with my fear of the, what can happen, I actually was very strict. And that would give me control, make sure that they safe because I never had safety. And
Mm.
then she goes like, yeah, but I have no freedom. I'm like,
Oh.
huh. And God, I was complaining to God, like I did everything right. What's going on? Like they survive, they thrive, and they super intelligent. They excel at school and everything, but there's so much like this big load of like extra stuff that like so I'm not in control with.
Are they human?
Oh yeah, but you know what he said to me? He's like, well, because it's sin.
Yes.
And I realized that doesn't matter how wonderful we are as a parent, we try our best and we should, but then we have to let go of control, number one, because we're not in control. And second, well, we have to I'm not saying like we have to, but just like it's my opinion, what I saw, and that's what struck me because God said, like He showed me, doesn't matter what family is, like like bad parents, good parents, like lovely parents, any parents, still this child have its own life and character and plan and path, and they already been born like um with that self inside. I can help them to mold them and to support them and all this stuff. But what she was giving me back, it was like totally her own attitude and character that I'm not in control of. And sin it's sin, like misbehaving, go against the flow, rebellion, like throwing feet that like, one day my 12-year-old like, I never leave you, mommy. I want to be with you for the rest of my days. And next day, I hate this kitchen. Why do I have to do chores? Like literally in this voice. And I'm like, what is happening, and this interesting thought like occurred to me, and God spoke to me in those days. Thanks God, like that I have like the most difficult relationship with my oldest one, but it taught me how to be a mother. It's like it's boost my faith, like, and took me to another level because I have to trust God and run and complain and cry to him and like and all that stuff. it's it strengthened our relationship with my husband because we have to strategize and rethink everything. And now we have 3 kids. We literally have like plans and strategies because we've been on the job for 17 years, so we already know some stuff. But that time, literally, being like honest with her and just back off and knowing that I kind of put my baggage on her because of my own fears and insecurities and my beliefs too. I assume that they will thrive if I create this kind of environment. And then God said to me, like, if they're gonna end up CEOs of the companies or the bomb under the bridge, this is not on you. You do
That's
what
right.
you do. You trust. We build the foundation. We give them opportunities. We love them. They're healthy. And even my daughter said, not another day, but not too long ago, she goes, "Did you know I'm reading that most of the um what is that called? The childhood tragedies, tragedies? Is that it?
Strategy.
I'm like, man, it doesn't sound right in my head. But happening only because of like the parents' negligence or mistakes or something like that. So she goes, I'm really grateful that you were like super hyper aware of your surroundings, that you were like on us like that. I'm like, okay, that sounds like a compliment on my
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah, that's wonderful. makes
Yeah.
the bad days more bearable,
Yeah.
right?
And you know what? We overcome it. So like those conversation, and I have to apologize and I have to tell her, listen, I couldn't
Right.
give you something that I didn't have. I didn't know I need therapy. Now, after years of therapy, I understand that was not right, but this is only way I knew. So we have to rethink this and apologize and go and still build relationships. But I do believe they love us. They
Yes.
love us and they're healthy and they good, very good people. And I know that I'm proud of who they are becoming. And I love hanging out with them. They're like super smart, super cool, like, you know. But guys, hold on. There is no perfect. It's like teenager and preteens. Even this morning, it was like trying to eat like breakfast and they like, where's my shorts? I'm like, stop. I literally have to raise my voice to just like stop both of you. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is morning. Let's do this in a different like volumes and attitudes. Like, so honestly, it's life and it's always gonna be happening. So I think taking day by day and just like do your best and especially like for moms out there, if you're doing your best, like, even if you don't even feel that it's enough, it's enough. It's okay. It's gonna get
Yes.
better.
That's
So
right.
Kelly, where can people go find more about your books and your work and um yes.
Well, they can drop into my website, www.kelleyrene.com. That's KELLEYRENE. I did want to share that I also am a contributing writer for the Voice of Truth free digital magazine online. It's a Christian magazine produced through Women World Leaders, which is an incredible ministry for women. Well, really for men. They also have some books geared towards men, but I just feel like women, we carry so much emotion and we're such empaths at times as moms and wives and just caring for other people that sometimes we take all of that onto our shoulders and we need a little extra encouragement, if you will. And so I just encourage readers, our listeners, really to go to womenworldleaders.com, I think .net, and check out the podcast and the different materials that they have a Bible study, they have a devotions, and the specifically the magazine. It's free online, Voice of Truth, and and check out my quarterly story about Mercy Rivers, who would start out as a college student and just her struggles in college. And now, lo and behold, she's graduated from college
That's
and the
awesome.
Lord has called her into ministry. So every quarter, I have
That's
a new
awesome.
story about what the Lord's doing in her life. And I'm really having fun with Mercy, getting to know her. And I met a new lady. I don't know, it's probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, someone from a friend group, and she said, Kelley, I wouldn't normally say this, but every time Voice of Truth comes out, I go straight to your article and read your article first. And it just blessed the socks off of me. No one's ever said anything like that to me before. And I thought, wow. So I have one fan reading about Mercy
Aw,
Reaver besides myself. And it really was a blessing for her to say that to me. So I do encourage readers to go check that out and check out my other books, Camila, Saving Sabina, Romanian Runaway, just really good stories, all inspired by true events and just how the Lord led me to reach out and just share his love and just be a vessel in that
mm,
moment. Because let me be real with you, it looks very different for each one of us in specifically the way that the Lord wants us to minister to others. And it could be a kind word, it could be a kind
absolutely.
gesture, it could just simply be a smile. But don't ever let the enemy stand in the way of you being a blessing to someone else, because in the end, you will be the one walking away just feeling so incredibly blessed. The Lord is so multifaceted that way.
That's awesome. Honestly, I think it's gonna be the name of your episode because you mentioned few times and it's have so much power in this in this sentence. But before I let you go, Kelly, I would like to ask you my signature question. What does love and to be loved means to you?
Ooh, that is quite the loaded question. And I'm going to answer it this way. I'm packing right now. We're recording this the Friday before Thanksgiving, and I'm packing right now. And next Thursday, my entire family, me, my husband, my mother-in-law, all 5 of my children and my grandchildren are all getting together for Thanksgiving. And we talked a lot about what it looks like to be a mom, and our faults, and how challenging it can be. And sometimes our kids don't necessarily feel blessed or blessed to that they get us for their mom. But next Thursday, I'm meeting at one of my daughter's homes who volunteered to host all of us there. Going to be surrounded by all of my kids. It's probably going to be very chaotic. There may be even a so a little tension here and there, but for me, loving means loving them, loving their spouses, loving their children, their in-laws, all of the family that now is attached to my family, and then being loved by them, and whatever that looks like, whatever capacity that they are able to give right now in the stresses and just what life is throwing at them, and just enjoying it all, the ups and downs, whatever that looks like, just enjoying it all. And in those moments of tension, saying, okay, Lord, what is it that you're trying to show me right now? How can I demonstrate my love? Help me not to get frustrated or
Yes.
upset, not play into the tension, but how do I demonstrate your love? Whether we're all happy in the moment, or maybe in the next 5 minutes, there will be some kind of stress or some kind of, whatever that looks like. That's what it looks like for me to love and be loved. Just accept it, whatever they're able to give, be okay with that, and not have my own predetermined idea of what Thanksgiving is going to look like, what they're bringing, what they're not bringing, whatever. Be okay in the moment and know that God is going to fill that home with his love, whether it looks like what I think it should or not. But I'm looking forward to it. I know it's going to be a good time.
That is beautiful. Any final thoughts, Kelley?
I just want to encourage the moms, the women out there, even the ladies perhaps, who I talked about my fear of not being able to have children. And I don't want to plug my book, but Miracle Mindset is pretty amazing. It is on Amazon, just about how the God of the universe cared about little old Kelley, and he had a plan, even though the doctor said, Kelley, it'll be a miracle if you ever get pregnant. God had a completely different answer and different journey for me. And we all have different journeys. And so if you are listening today and you're thinking, oh my gosh, whatever you see of me, I promise you about 2 hours ago, I didn't look like this. So whatever you're looking like or feeling like right now, don't think that you're alone. There are so many women who are journeying right alongside of you. Reach out in your struggle to someone that you trust. You can send me an email, Kelley@KelleyRene.com, and I'll respond. We care about you and God cares about you. Don't ever feel like you're alone. Reach out, whatever that looks like. Reach out and connect with others. We are not meant to do life alone. And in our struggles, and we just need to surround ourselves with others and truly just say, God, I don't know what's going on right now in my life, but I know you do. I know you have a clear picture that I can't see. And I'm just going to choose to trust you right now. Even though it feels like mass chaos, I'm going to trust you. I choose to trust you, and do not believe that whatever the lies that are coming into your head. Tell yourself they're from the enemy, and that God, if you just rest, just close your eyes, take a deep breath and say, God, what do you want to say to me right now? I'm listening, and listen for his very still small voice, because he truly does love you. He wants to minister to you right in the midst of the chaos of your life. And we're going into the holidays right now. I know that that means a lot of chaos for many of us, especially as moms. Just rest in the joy of knowing that God loves you. He's got you. He's going to take care of whatever you're facing right now. Just give it to him. Amen. Oh, that was a great sermon.
Yes. Thank you. That was
Thank you,
beautiful.
Lord.
So thank you so much, Kelley, for being our guest today. And you provided so much insight and inspiration. And we truly appreciate you sharing your heart and your wisdom with us. And to all the listeners, our special guest today is Kelley Rene. And it's been such a pleasure to have her on our show. Don't hesitate to reach out to Kelley. And yes, plug in all your books. I'm going to put everything in show notes. Reach out, and I bet you have more than one fan because you're fantastic. And I know God does in the background amazing thing. You just don't know. And sometimes that's the beauty of it. You think like, oh, one fan, and there's like million and one. And I bet there is. And everything on this episode was mentioned gonna be in the show notes. And guys, you are stay tuned for another episode of Love and Beloved. And thank you so much for listening. And thank you again, Kelley. I'm so grateful for you and your time.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. What a blessing for me to be here.
That's awesome. Until next time, guys, take care and be blessed.
Amen.